Great experiences build great leaders. Great leaders build great teams. This is Building Great Sales Teams.
All right, guys, welcome back to the show. I've got a great one for you today. I've got Elizabeth Calzadilla. She's the founder of Business 411, CEO of Marketing 411, and co-host of Roofers Only. She's been in roofing since 2015. She was listed as number 17 of the top 50 women in Miami from Women We Admire list. She scaled from a solo consultant to 2 agencies that are fully operational and staffed in 16 months. She's consulted for over 150 roofing companies and launched over 500 roofing brands as well. She's an expert in roofing business process, roofing and construction sales, lead generation, organic and paid marketing, and brand building. Elizabeth, welcome to the show.
Hi. I should have maybe shortened the bio.
It's all good. I mean, I like to provide a lot of context for our listeners, you know what I mean? So they perk up and they know what they're listening for. And especially, obviously, if they're in roofing, they're going to be listening to this one. But in general, some of the things we're talking about in here are building processes, marketing, lead gen, all things that anybody in home services is going to need to attack at some point. So listen up, guys. Elizabeth's got a ton of experience and she's going to bring some value today. All right. I'm new to the consulting game, right? And so I've been doing it kind of like as a side hustle the past year or so. This past year, I shut down my sales teams completely. I'm all in on consulting. So I would love to know, what does your typical week look like now?
Yeah. So when I first started consulting, I was traveling every single week to a different office. This was most recently because when I first started the company, I started as a consultant. Then I had the agencies running and I was like, okay, I want to get back into consulting again. And I'm happy to say I'm not doing that anymore. My schedule, I've decided to scale up the consulting to what I perceive the next level, which means I'm not doing any more one-on-one consulting, only doing a group event. I do 1 live session a week and every other month, 1 in-person training.
So if someone comes to you and says, hey, I got to have you one-on-one, you don't have a price for that?
Not anymore. And I've had ever since I decided that I've had like twice my offer of what I used to charge being offered to me. And I just kind of had to stick to it and say, no, I can't do that anymore. It's going to take me away from my goals.
Yeah. So what do we call that in sales? Fear of loss. Once you take it away from them, that's all they want, right?
Should have been using that tactic.
Yeah. So you just got into jiu-jitsu. How is that going? I saw on your post you throwing around 6-foot men the other day.
Yes, I am very much so in pain from head to toe. But I will say that the entire reason I decided to do it is because I think the one area of my life that I never really pushed myself was physically. I think as women, we don't necessarily think, I want to be super strong and like carry heavy stuff and flip a dude over. But I want to be able to do that now.
So have you seen that movie Woman King yet?
No, I haven't.
Oh man, you got to see that movie. It's going to get you hyped for jiu-jitsu and practice and throwing some dudes around. Yeah. So at first, me and Ryan and, I don't mean to put ourselves on blast here, but we're like, Woman King, really? Like, we can't even be kings anymore. Women got to take that too, right? And then we watched the movie and it was like, oh, we get it. Like, it makes sense once you watch the movie. You just got to watch it. It's an amazing movie. But anyways, back into roofing. How did you even get into that space?
Yeah, so I didn't really have any other opportunities. Myself, I did have to drop out of high school at a young age due to some illnesses with my mother. And as an adult, until I was 18, I really struggled with finding a job. The only experience I had was I actually recruited my friends to be in like music videos, and then I started recruiting other girls. So I was actually just recruiting women who were looking for modeling or artistic jobs. And not having any real job experience besides that, I figured the only thing I could do was be a waitress. And when I started to really want to develop my career, no one would hire me. I had just moved to Miami, 18 years old, and until I walked into this tiny little office in a beat up building in North Miami Beach.
It's
And
classic.
yes, and it was a startup roofing app. At that time, technology was not as present in the home service industry as it is today.
Hmm.
Um, so basically, my job was to cold call contractors and go door to door.
So when you say door to door, you mean like business to business, right?
Yep, business to
Awesome.
business. Yep.
So the thing I noticed about Miami, because I opened up an office there once, it didn't go well. We opened up near the city, and what we realized is you're either like rich or poor. There is no in between in Miami, right? And
No,
so what we realized, we should have opened up to the north and like Coral Gables, kind of that area. And so that's one of the things that's really tough about
that's
Miami.
where
Is
I
just,
live.
oh, really, Coral Gables? Yeah. So like the market is just, it's so or so one extreme or the other, right? And
Mhm,
so there's not a big middle class there,
mhm,
and middle class is what you want in door to door, right?
mhm.
And so we, that office struggled for a while, and eventually I shut it down. I was losing too much money in it. But okay, so I probably had about 50 plus women work for me in door to door, right? And one of the things that was always so frustrating is all the guys would immediately start hitting on them. You know what I'm saying? And so even though, and we had to establish it in our handbook and our code of conduct, basically. And it's hard because these are 1099 guys. There's only so much that you can spell out without like making them into W-2 by
Yeah,
state law or by federal law, right?
yeah.
And so when your clients or your the companies that you work for or work with are struggling with this, or they have something like this arise, how do you recommend they tackle it?
Yeah, so being a woman in an industry where you're trying to convince someone, where you're trying to present something or position yourself, a lot of times when a female and male dynamic, when it comes to relationship building, if one of the people in the interaction is attracted to the other, typically the man to the woman, he is
Mhm.
going to go ahead and say something. I think as women, we have to be in a place where we can take control of our and as much as we can. Unfortunately there's situations where it goes extreme and I think that should be handled differently, but on a surface level, if the interaction is out of control and the man is controlling it, and as a woman you don't want to really deal with that, we have to teach women to be stronger, to take their place and really not feel bad or pressured into
Mhm.
accepting certain advances.
Yeah.
Because I think for myself, I just make it very clear, like, do not talk to me that way. And this
Hmm.
is your last shot. If we're going to have a conversation, let's converse.
I like that. It's abrupt. It's, very to the point, and
Yeah.
it's, a lot of times deserved because at that point it's a business transaction. You know what I'm saying? It's one thing to be out somewhere and about, at a venue or something like that. You know what I mean? It's another thing to be like, obviously you're in your workplace, whether you're in the field or not. It's your workplace, right?
Yeah.
No,
Yeah.
I.
And I think that it also depends on the industry.
Mhm.
Women who are doing door to door sales, I've done door to door for homeowners as well. When I've been consulting for clients, I've gone door to door with them and
Mhm.
tried to get inspections. But I think it's all about how you present yourself. And if you present yourself in a certain way and you're still getting certain advances, then that's just not the right person for you to be
Right.
talking to. So I think it's important to know when to walk away, and I'm
Mhm.
very great from leaving someone high and dry, like, bye,
Yeah.
I gotta go.
Well, and I love that because that just shows the confidence in the next door. You know what I'm saying?
Hmm.
I can get it at the next door. I don't need to at this one. This isn't worth it, basically.
Correct. It's not worth it.
100%. So you said that you started out selling a roofing app.
Mhm.
So I'm guessing this kind of gave you a look behind the scenes in terms of, all right, supporting the roofing industry versus just being in it, right? And so what made you transition to consulting long term? Did you kind of like get the bug when you were selling the app?
So when I was selling the app, my job was to, when I would cold call a contractor, I'd have to bring them into a Zoom meeting, qualify them, make sure that they were a good client. I'd have to add value and give them a measurement report and measure a roof for them. So throughout my year, I was there, throughout my career, I was there for almost 5 years. I measured thousands of roofs. I spoke to thousands of roofing company owners, and not on the surface level. Like, I really got to know their businesses, and I had my 5 questions that I knew about every roofer that I worked with: their company size, their business model, their technology, their sales team, and their overall process of how they function. So after 4.5 years of hearing that over and over and over again every single day, I figured out that they all had the same issues. And at the same time, I was doing personal and business development on my own to be a good person, to be a better salesperson, to build better relationships. And actually, what happened is I just got too many job offers over and over again, and I was like, why am I saying no? Like, if this person, and it would happen at least once a day, someone would offer me a job, they would offer me to work for them, and as a consultant, I could take on as many jobs as I wanted, and that's
Right.
that's how it transitioned.
Was there anybody that inspired you into that industry? You kind of saw them as like, holy shit, I want to do that.
Not necessarily in roofing. It was for me as Grant Cardone.
Okay.
I've been a Cardone since I was 18 years old. Since he was making free YouTube videos. I'm going to GrowthCon in February now.
Yeah. No, that's fantastic. I've got a funny story about Grant. So I had a PR company doing PR for me back in 14, 15, I think it was. And so I actually got on his show, Power Players. And I went, interviewed him on the show. That was a blast and everything. And then freaking Jared Glant afterwards closed me on sales training I did not need. You know, us salespeople, like, we're easy to close because we love freaking being sold. I love to buy, right? And so, you know, it was a good training. It just wasn't good for us in cable door to door. You know what I mean? It was hard to transition a lot of his training into, you know, that niche, and which I love about what you're doing right now because you're specific to roofing. Everything you're doing is built for that. Obviously, you could easily transition into another niche, but that's your focus right now. And so when I try to take it back to the guys, because they weren't saying door to door, because they weren't talking about home services, because it was like some car centric sales training, they just didn't adopt it. You know what I'm saying? And eventually I pressured Jared and his team to like help me integrate this. You know what I'm saying? It didn't work out. We came to an impasse, and Grant Cardone ended up suing me. So because I tried back out of the contract. Yeah.
That is
he had every right. I don't hold it against him. You know what I mean? I was a young business owner. I think I was 26 at the time. You know, so I wasn't making the greatest decisions either. You know what I mean? And so I own that. You know what I mean? Grant's still the man. You know what I mean? So I don't take it personally. It's just business, right?
And that's what it is. For me, I've had products of his, for example, like the business boot camp. Ended up being like a $47,000 investment for a 360 program where I thought it was going to be a transformational experience for my business. I didn't have the 47K really to invest in this program because I was only like my second year just starting. Right. And so they allowed me to do like this payment plan. So I was really focusing and investing into this. And I'm like, I have to make this happen for my company. And I was just severely disappointed. But I think what that goes to show you is there are people like us who understand sometimes you can try to do business with someone. It's not going to be the right move. It doesn't mean it might not be the right relationship. It just wasn't the right fit with that. And after that, I still have attended boot camps. I still have attended other stuff, but I knew that just was not a good fit for me. And I should have not done that.
I couldn't agree more because we get caught up in the hype, you know what I mean? And everybody does it, right? I see it all the time. And so I'm in Apex, Ryan Stewman's group, and I'm in executives, right? So executives has all the shiny shit, you know what I'm saying? They've got crypto people, they've got real estate syndications, which I'm a part of a few of those. But when I first got in, I went crazy and I bought everything. And it's like, at some point you gotta ask yourself, am I going to execute on this?
Yeah.
really get my ROI. Because if I'm not, then I'm wasting theirs and my time. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
'Cause you always want to be a raving review for any service that you use. You know what I'm saying? You want to be their poster child for their service because you actually executed on it. And so for Apex, I would say I am, but for some of those other things that I got into, I shouldn't have got into them because they should have just been passive. So the real estate syndications obviously are passive. So those have been great. You know what I mean? Because I don't have to do anything. So it works out
Yeah,
great.
that's the thing, is that finding the things that are going to work for you and finding the value in the rooms that you're in that are specific to you.
Mhm.
But that's one reason why I like to be specific to my niche is I want to give value to the people I know I can help.
100%. Yeah, let me ask you this, and this is just consultant to consultant. Like, I have this problem, right? I don't just go in and do what they're paying me for. I end up trying to do everything. You know what I'm saying? It's because that's my nature. Like, I see problems and I want to go and solve them. And it doesn't matter if it's in the scope of work or the deliverables or not. I tend to like overextend myself a little bit. Do you run into that too, or have you gotten that dialed in now?
So I got it dialed in. I was just going to give you some advice. I honestly, when I first started, I used to listen to all their problems. Then I'd be like, oh my God, this whole entire business, I need to help them. And then I realized that what I originally came here to do, I wasn't finishing it all the way. And I was leaving with like a bunch of different conversations midway.
Mm-hmm.
So then I created my consultant plan. I only consult on what I wrote out, and I created an SOP on the way that I consult. So I don't go into different branches of the business unless that is part of the consultation plan.
Yeah.
Everything is set ahead of time, and the only things that we talk about whenever my clients may want to ramble and start going like another rabbit hole.
Sideways. Yeah.
Yeah, I have to redirect them and say, look, these kind of issues can happen. Let's figure out how we can attack that or tackle that together next time. Right now, we really need to focus on this. And then they respect that as well. They're going to respect it more when you leave, and everything that you said would be done is done. And so that's what helped me, having the black and white. This is what we're doing. We're not going anywhere else. No gray areas.
Yeah. I'm wrapping up my second 90-day engagement. I've got 4 others either starting or happening right now. And so I'm absolutely trying to figure that out. It's like my first one, when I look at it, the scope of work is like I ended up doing double what it was. You know what I'm saying? And so what I'm realizing is I'm going to have to, if they bring in like a new issue or a new problem that I can solve, I'm going to have to like swap it out with something that isn't as important to them. You know what I'm saying? So basically that SOP or that deliverable that you talked about, being able to kind of swap it in and out based on hours.
I would tell you what I did is per project, and I found that it became very more. So I started when I first started consulting, I started like weekly live calls. Well, no, when I initially started, I started with 2 clients that I would dedicate a certain amount of hours a week. Then I scaled the agencies, and I was like, okay, that's not what I want to do. Then I started doing like weekly calls with clients. I figured out that also wasn't a good fit for me because now what was happening, my time was tied to this thing in specific. So then I went to the group classes. Then I started traveling, which was the best learning experience because I dialed in my system. Because then I could get in 2 days and finish not only a full SOP, I could go through their local market research and leave them like a 20 to 40 page custom manual that I designed for them based off of the problems that they had. It would only be one big problem that I would solve besides the program. So I think for me, that worked the best. And I felt like that was the most scalable from all of the methods that I used. Which is why I put it into a group format, which is the most scalable.
Yeah, no, that makes a ton of sense. And that's, I think, where I'm ending up essentially, because that's very similar to what I'm doing right now. I start with an initial audit. I go into the market for 2 days, a total of 10 hours is what I quote. And that is sitting down with the leadership team, the management team, sales management, if they have it. And then also shadowing one of their like entry-level salespeople and then one of their experienced salespeople, basically seeing their process and everything. And then I end up with an audit report, and then we start that work over the next 90 days of basically reconstructing their sales program or building them a brand new one if that's what they hired me for. So
Let me ask you a good question. I know this is you're supposed to interview me. You know how the sales team and the whole sales concept should function for most companies, right?
right.
So what people want to know is they just want you to tell them, and you don't have to switch it up every time. That would definitely help you, and I would even buy that training from you
Yeah.
on this is how you build a great sales team. Period.
Mhm.
These are the pillars, and that's it. And then you don't have to, keep your time committed to just like one company at a time. Which it depends on what your goals are. But building great sales team, I think everybody can use help with, including myself.
Yeah, absolutely. So the pillars for me are CODOC is what I call it, and it's compensation, opportunity, development, operations, and culture, right? And then there's documents that support all those things. Obviously the first one being a comp plan, the second one being an opportunity structure. With that opportunity structure, you're going to see your development structure, which is, product training, sales training, leadership training, and then mindset development, right? Because we want to improve them as humans, not just as salespeople for us, right?
Absolutely.
And so that creates a lot of that loyalty. And then operations, that's where I probably spend 40% of my time, way too much time, I should say, because I ended up getting into the rest of their business, because you got the sales process, you got the recruiting process, you got onboarding, you've got metrics and reporting, you know what I'm saying? And that's all within operations, right? And if you're doing all those first four things really well, the culture becomes natural, but you do have to kind of systemize that as well. Whether we're talking about, I love wristbands, right, that have your mission on them, and the T-shirts. Basically, the guys are proud to wear the company colors, the company name, the company mission, and the core values of the company, and that's what creates a lot of that culture. And then, of course, we all love competition. We love trips. You know what I'm saying? Salespeople love going places and taking the Instagram pictures and stuff. So they'll work hard. Yeah, exactly. They'll work hard for those trips.
I
But
love
that's
that. I love that. I think it's really awesome to hear your perspective on that, and I absolutely love operations. So I know I can see how easy it is to fall down the rabbit hole of business operations.
100%, 100%. So, obviously there's a lot of companies out there that are similar to you, or, they're coaches, right? I love that you're a consultant. That's why we're vibing so much right now on consulting. You know what I mean? Because it's more like the business is our client, not the individual as much, because I get tired of seeing in our space and in our, I guess, sphere of influence, there's a lot of coaches, and their favorite thing to say is, I'm going to help you remove that thing from your childhood that's blocking you from being the best version of yourself, or whatever the case is, right? That's the line they use every time. And I'm just like, they just need help with the recruiting, because it sucks. You know what I'm saying? Like, and obviously as you level up as an individual, your business is going to naturally level up. You become the example, and people reach for that in your business, right? But going back to consulting, what do you feel like sets you apart from not necessarily your competition, but just people in the space in general?
So one thing about what I do, there are certain things that no one else does, period.
Okay.
Like there's areas of my company that I have no competition in. And even if I did have competition, or competition may try to come, I'm just going to dominate them. And I create.
I love that.
I created the first white labeled roofing education system. What I did is I took all the complexities that people just want to overcomplicate to try to teach someone new, and I made it super simple for anyone coming into the industry to know. And I've divided it into a series where you can choose what you want the employee to learn, and it's fully white labeled. So it's not even about me. It's not about my branding. They don't have to pay me every month for it. They just buy it, they use it, they print as many copies as they want. And I can confidently say we are the only ones doing it. And if anyone even wants to try, it's okay, because I'm still going to kill it.
All of a sudden, the freaking beast came out on that conversation right there. That's your baby. You can tell that's your baby right there.
That's why you can, when you're like, when I was just saying how people don't hit on me, it's because they do that.
Yeah, exactly. So,
but the second thing would just be my industry experience.
Okay.
I'm obsessed with roofing itself. how roofing systems, the actual installation is, how the business functions, how people learn roofing, all of those pillars of just not even just someone owning a company, but someone coming into a business and someone dominating in the industry. It really is something that I'm obsessed with and I just don't stop learning.
No, I love that. And kind of going back to the beginning of our conversation, the 5 questions that you asked, do you still do that? Is that kind of your, all right, let me get the litmus test for this company and where I think they're at and what I think they need?
Yeah, absolutely. Those 5 questions, if I know those 5 things about a business, I'll be able to tell exactly what problem they have and match them with the right solution that I've created. Because as a consultant, what I did was every problem that the companies I would consult for would have, if
Mhm.
I saw a trend that the same problems were available or were actually happening to the same people, then I would just create a solution that was scalable that I could offer to all of them. And that's why I created like my production manual and now my production training and admin trainings so that they're specific to the problems that I'm
Mhm.
solving and I can solve them at scale instead of one on one.
So that's one of the first things that I noticed about you is you're always holding those books, or those training manuals. And I appreciate that because a lot of what I do in building sales programs is leave them with what we call, and they all like to call it different stuff. I call it a take home packet, and basically it's the new sales reps gets hired and it's all the like pertinent information that they need to know, but it's not overkill. It's the very basic 1.0 stuff of the sales training. The 2.0 stuff comes through management and modules later on, right?
Mhm.
And so, but I would get that feedback like, man, you're putting stuff on paper. And I'm like, when you first bring someone on, you're going to have to send them an email. You're going to have to, you know, make sure you can manage their account and everything. And then like, if you virtually do this, right. And don't get me wrong. I do have a back end that I'm working on that my first client is about to get all his stuff uploaded to it so he can access it at any time. He has all his documents, all his video training, all that good stuff. Very similar to what you were talking about. So it's kind of crazy that that's how it's evolving, and it makes a lot of sense because that's scalable, right? Just like you said.
I love that.
But so when you were first creating that document, did you have it in your head? You were like, I've sold apps, I'm selling technology, but I'm creating this kind of paper-based document. What was the thinking behind that?
Yeah, so I actually sell a digital license. That's what they purchase from me. The
Okay.
printing is an extra, but really what they're purchasing from me is a digital license and the right to use that book with their branding as often as they'd like. And whenever I add a new book, they just purchase a new license for the book that I made. So I'm not necessarily selling the whole point of the physical copies is because when a new rep is out in the field, the roofing industry is extremely complex. You cannot learn the roofing industry in 30 days, in 60 days, or 90 days. You just honestly cannot. And where the concept came from the book is when I got into the industry, I had this binder and I went to manufacturers, suppliers, roofers. My boss, I'm still very thankful for him, mentored me and just gave me so much knowledge. And that's how I learned about roofing. And that evolved little by little. And my team absolutely is great at putting together my ideas and my content into ways that someone else can learn. So each of the books that we make have assessments within them so you can understand if the person retained the information. And it continues to create that engagement. But absolutely, I agree. The digital part is very important, but I think people undervalue the power of having something physical. Like you're empowering me with something. I don't need an excuse. And there's no excuse. You have a book
Yeah.
that's literally printed there. You can't, there's no excuses at that point, honestly.
Well, and everybody learns different ways. I'm not very good on my phone in terms of education, but if I'm sitting at a desk and I have a computer in front of me, I can absorb information that way, right?
Mhm.
And some people need to see the video SOP. Some people need to see the written one. Some people need to see it in a process flow. You know what I mean? That's one of my favorite things to make right now is go into Google Draw and make a sales flow. So they understand, okay, this is the whole picture. I'm this part. This is the whole thing, everything that goes into this. Because, right, salespeople get in their head and they're like, oh, I'm the reason this business is doing so well, right? It happens all the time. And then when you see that whole thing, everything that goes into processing that sale and then fulfilling it on top of that, I mean, that's a whole another level right there of perspective, I should say.
Yeah, I actually that's something I created an entire process for how
Mhm.
to bring a sale to production and actually bring the communication in through operations. So for roofing specifically, I created what's called a pre-production process, which is where all three departments unite and transfer information to each other in a very quick manner. But that's where all your checks and balances happen, including a profit check before the job is fully processed. So ideally, this is going to happen within a 24-hour time period of when the contract is sold. But that's one thing that I think is very important is sales directly communicating to operations and production and having that job folder with all the correct information so that the job can get processed successfully.
I love it. And it's such a gap in honestly any type of home service where there's construction involved, because
Mhm,
typically the owner is from the trades. You know what
mhm.
I'm saying? So what you're seeing is all these owners from trades and they're incredibly good at what they do and they're even amazing at managing their people. They have amazing cultures, but their people are having to make up for their lack of systems, you know? And so you're coming in and basically inserting those systems in and then even customizing them to a degree, or it's up to the owner to say, hey, this is custom here or there, whatever the case is. But damn, the years of experience that they are compressing time, right, is what's happening. And what I'm realizing is like, I'll go in and they won't have a script for their
Yeah,
salespeople. You know what I'm saying? And so it's like, oh no, they kind of just have their own style. Yeah, of course they have their own style, but they still need a structure. They still need to make sure they hit these points so your customers aren't, pissed off later on down the road when they didn't cover something in the fulfillment process, And so it's a lot of fun to go in and basically be this like shining light for them because they're like, I've been needing this and I didn't know it. You know what I'm saying? And as soon as you said it, I was like, I need that. You know what I
yeah.
mean?
What is very awesome, the best feeling that I get to experience when I'm consulting is I don't know how to say this, but it's like when my clients cry. I like if whenever you're and this is I think like especially working with men, these are strong, successful men for the most part. It just
Mhm.
suddenly hits them. Like and I love every single one of my clients, so I'm saying this out of a place of love. But when they break down and they just have that moment of like, aha, like I got
Yeah.
this, I can see the future, I can see the way out and they're inspired again because a lot of times people are not reaching out to me because they're super inspired with their business and their business is amazing and they're happy. They're reaching out because they have a problem or if they
Mhm.
are happy they just can't get to that next level or they want like that cheat sheet. But
Right.
for the most part it's the people who are just frustrated and that's the majority of my clients, people who are frustrated, have been in this industry for years, have made millions and millions and have lost more millions than most people have even made.
Right.
And then when they see that someone understands the construction industry but can put it into a way that they can pass it off to their team
Mhm.
that they haven't been able to do their entire lives, that's what helps them. And they are amazing themselves. They just not a skill that you might have, and that's okay. It doesn't, you don't have to be great at everything.
Well, and I think there's so much to be said about that because the reason that they're breaking down and crying is because you've just basically taken all this crap out of their head
Mm-hmm.
and put it on paper that but they had to hold so much there. So I was talking about this with my client yesterday, is his managers are having to hold a lot of information in their head and they're having to manage their people based on one-on-one relationships versus based on systems, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then when you manage based on systems, you don't have to think about it. This is the system. You know what I mean? If you fall below this performance metric, you go on probation. If you're on probation for more than 1 or 2 weeks, in terms of the metric, then we're supposed to let you loose. And then we can have that one-on-one conversation. You know what I'm saying? But what it does is it frees up their mental, right? Because we can only make so many decisions every day, and our brain only has so much power every day. Eventually we turn into mush, and I've been doing that a lot lately, which is
Yeah.
guessing what you dealt with when you first started. But
Yep.
so if we're able to take some of that stuff out of their head, get it on paper, and scale it, I mean, I can see why they're breaking down in front of you like that. You just taken all this stress and weight off of their shoulders essentially, and said, "Hey, let's systemize it, get it laid out, get this working properly in the sales process." And
Yeah, so the reason why we're still staying in roofing and we're really focusing on it is because it's such a big underserved market. Not enough great talent has been able to stay and retain the information they need to know to come in and make impactful changes. Because I do think if we were able to keep really good talent in this industry, it'd be evolved a lot more. And that's why I'm staying in it, is because I want to keep trying to make the difference into bringing and keeping great talent in the roofing industry.
no, I love that because it's impact versus just like trying to grab every client you can. You want to grab specific clients, create the impact in that industry because that's what you're from, right?
Mhm.
And we all know the cliches, like there's solar bros, anybody with a ladder and a truck can be a roofer kind of thing. We've heard all those like cliches. So I love that there's actual people in these industries trying to change that. You got Jake Hess Solar, Sherry D's another one, that are really like investing in the community, Solar Joe. And then on the roofing side, I mean, yourself, and then Kurt Lennington is a big inspiration for me. Honestly, so, culture was a big piece, right? And he came and spoke to the Apex executives 1 month about culture and how he built his culture. And it was like he was doing the 3.0 and the 4.0 of what I was doing. You know what I'm saying? And so that he was a big inspiration for me. Is there anybody in the industry that, you're kind of looking up to like that, or really just loving their content right now?
In roofing,
Mm-hmm.
see
Or
that's
even,
right. Yeah, in other industries for sure. So Sam Taggart, he's
yeah.
also someone that I just respect so much. He created not just a program to train people to help business owners. He's created the retreats. He has door-to-door con. He's created software. He's invested into real estate, and he's an amazing, amazing public speaker. So besides him in the industry, he's like my number one in the industry
Right.
specifically. Outside of that, my biggest role model is Oprah.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that's you're never done working if you're chasing Oprah. You know what I'm saying? No, that's fantastic. Okay, so what's next for you in your business, and then personally, like what's next for you?
Yeah, so in my business, right now, I've been working on really scaling that group coaching class. I just finished writing my a newer book on SOPs. And this year we are going to do solar training for roofers. And where I'm coming from it is just to help them learn the basics enough that they know what kind of solar training programs they really want to invest in. I don't see myself being that go-to for solar training. It's just, hey guys, let me help you get started here. This is
Yeah.
what you need to know before go to the next step. And continuing to just at the end of the year, we want to have one live event to bring all of our clients together. Because we have had my first year, I had over 500 roofing companies that we worked for, and right now we've had over 650 actually purchase our training materials so far. So we want to just bring them all together and celebrate that at the end of this year. Personally, so last year I went through what is it called, like a shotgun wedding type thing.
Oh,
And
nice.
well, it was over
Oh,
quickly started.
okay, sorry. I think
So
I had seen one of your posts about that, so that's my bad.
yeah. It was actually it was 2021 is when I did that. 2022, I was single for the majority of the year, really focusing on myself. And this year, as a person, I'm just working on my self-discipline and being alone, mastering the art of being alone, honestly, is has
Hmm.
been something that I've been prioritizing. Jiu-jitsu. I'm gonna get into a fight before the end of the year.
Really? That's going to be cool to
Yeah.
see. Yeah, and so much of what we do is influence, right? And when
Mhm.
you can, so my thing is like barbecue and my chickens in my backyard, you know what I'm saying, and being from Texas, so I'm all things Texas, right? And so when you can mix in that personality and mix in, be a genuinely interesting person, that helps a lot. You know what I'm saying? So you doing jujitsu, I think you're gonna have a lot of fun with that, and it's gonna be a lot of good content for your followers to consume too. So that'll be great.
Yeah, most of the
Going back
people
to
that are on my page are men, and men, I mean, like
Mhm.
jujitsu and fighting.
Yeah, exactly. Catering to your audience. So I did want to mention though, you were talking about roofers and solar. And so what I've been in, I have a lot of clients in home services, right? And they're all excited about solar. It's like they're already in the client's home, so they want to be able to offer solar. Most of the time I'm like, I appreciate that, but let me ask you, like, can you scale what you have now? Is there any limit to the amount of customers you can bring on every year if you scale properly? You have the right sales process and systems and everything in place. And if the answer is yes, I can scale that, then don't get into solar in terms of like installing it and being, you know, trying to make your salespeople into dual roofing and solar experts. What I'm recommending that they do is that they have trusted partners in each of their markets that they refer out to. Now they take a heavy piece of the sales commission because they're basically referring them out already sold. And as they kind of scale that piece, it gets better and better, right? But what's happening a lot is these roofers are getting into solar, they're getting distracted, and then it's their original business, their main thing suffers a little bit. Are you seeing some of that?
Um, Definitely, I would say when it comes to roofers integrating not just solar or any other services, if they're doing too many services, sometimes if they don't have that process, it's not going to be successful all across the board.
Hmm.
Second point of what you said that really is true. You should have someone who's a trusted partner. Where I really want to focus on is making sure that they have the knowledge necessary to know if that person is a trusted partner, because you
Hmm.
cannot inspect what you don't, what is it, you can't expect what you can't inspect. So they can't pull up to their solar partners job and say, hey, you're not serving my client properly, because they don't know. So
Right.
they have to be knowledgeable, period, about solar, and they have to be knowledgeable about the home services that are related to what they're doing. And then
Hmm.
from there, if they have the skills to build a team, I think they can do a lot. What you're saying is true, though. I do think that they should focus on bringing in good partners, or if they're going to
Hmm.
bring it in house, have your solar sales team and have your roofing sales guys, or maybe your roofing sales guys are your setters, and then you do the upsell of the roof plus
Hmm.
the solar with a closer.
Yeah, I learned it the hard way when I was young. I had my sales org running on autopilot. I think this was 2015, and I decided, you know what, I'm going to start installing Christmas lights, and I'm going to run the crews. I want to be part of the fulfillment process because I was always sales before. It's like I'm really good at operations, so I'm gonna go out. I'm gonna run a crew for 1 year. I'm gonna be on the roof myself. I'm gonna figure out the whole process, and then I'm gonna scale it from there. And I'm gonna be. I think at the time I was a Perfect Light installer, right? And so I'm going to be Perfect Lights only installer nationwide. I'm taking over Christmas light installs, right? Because it was such a simple install. And then what happened was, maybe I did, you know, 4.5 million in commissions the year before, and then the next year I did 4 million and I did 500,000 in Christmas light installations. You know what I'm saying? So it was just like all I was doing was trading one for the other because I couldn't duplicate myself. You know what I'm saying? And so the systems were strong in the business that I was in, but I couldn't take anybody out of that and put them in another one. So the whole dual salesperson role can get really tough unless it really is just hey, I've got this person that can do a site survey for solar. They can get you a proposal for it, everything, and pushing that out. And then, oh darn, you made an extra 500,000 bucks for the referral. You know what I'm saying? It's like, that's easy money, instead of trying to take on the whole installation process and everything. There's plenty of installers out there that this is all they do full time is install solar, and they're terrible at it. You know what I'm saying? So like the idea that you're going to start it from scratch because an electrician, that's what always happens with roofers, right? They started in home remodeling, so they have the whole crew, you know what I mean? And they're like, oh, I can do this, and it's like, dude, solar installs are no joke. You know what I mean? If you do something wrong on there and you don't get paid, and everybody that the production or the fulfillment and the sales team isn't getting paid. Anyways, I've been a part of that for a while, so I know how fun it is. Okay, so
Question for you, actually.
okay.
Sorry, I have a question for you in regards to like some of like the national solar partners that there is that handle like the installation side, and then you as the roofer can sell. There's a lot that have tried to recruit me even to sign up some of my roofers. Is there anyone that you do recommend or that you would introduce me to that is a good national solar partner? Because I do have an active roofing base that wants to get into solar, and myself, I recognize when I'm not the qualified or expert, and I'm not a qualified expert on solar.
So today, I would say no, because a national installer, all they're really doing is they have great systems, they have great processes, they know what they're doing, and they have great accountability for their installers. But at the end of the day, the person that's installing that is a subcontractor that installs solar for a living, right? And so they have local sales orgs that they service, and then they have the national sales org that they service, And so my recommendation would be to do the actual work at a local level and create those relationships, because you're going to get so much more out of your installer if you're in their market and you're not paying that pass through, because that's all it is at the end of the day. It's a pass through, right? And so you're getting the software, you're getting the sales training, you're getting the, and there are some expenses that get reduced because they're buying in bulk, or they're doing, 200 installs instead of 20 with a certain installer. But where I had the best fulfillment process is when I had a local install relationship. And I'm not talking an installer that does 10 a month. I'm talking an installer that does like 200 or 300 a month, and there's one of those in every city. And it's even better if they're not servicing national partners, because those national partners bog down their business and they don't make them enough money from it, and they're just not happy. You know what I'm saying? Versus the local partners that bring them 20, 30 sales a month. They love those because they're high margin, right? They're because they're lower volume, they're able to have a higher red line. There's something to be said about paying people what they're worth. This whole idea in solar, low red line, low red line, low red line, you're only going to hurt your customer in the end, because you're stretching that installer. And you got me on a rant now. So part of the problem,
it's beneficial for me because I want to know.
Yeah. Part of the problem in solar right now is salespeople get paid too much, period, point blank. You should not be making, 6 to 7 grand for a 10 kilowatt system. It's ridiculous. That is almost 20% of the sales price, and what it's doing, what the installer, their net profit is on that? Probably 3-4 grand.
Wow.
So it's like, we need to move some of that money from sales to fulfillment. That absolutely needs to happen. Because you get on the phone with these install managers and they're underpaid, you know what I mean? Because the company can only pay them so much because of the low margin of the install. But why is that happening? Because of the national orgs are able to drive down that price and then mark it up to what they want, and then give it to the roofer or give it to the sales org or whatever the case is, right? And so I'm just very much of the mindset, build your own business locally, build your relationships locally. And then, I was having, with the CEO that was installing our systems, I would have lunch with them once a month. You know what I mean? And when you're creating that business locally, it's not super scalable, right? It's not the sales org model or the Solar Bro model, but it is, in my mind, the best. Yeah, it is in my mind the best situation for your customer, and it creates the best customer experience, because who's going out to install your people. You end up learning the names of the actual installers. You know what I'm saying? You go out there and you visit with them. you take them Red Bulls or Argenta Energies in my case, right? And you develop those relationships, and your customer is so much better served and serviced because of it. And
Yeah.
as long as you go ahead.
No, I was gonna say there was a shift that happened like this in roofing. So the payment structure used to be 10-50-50, which is where 10% of the check went to the company, and then you split 50-50 of the profits with salespeople. What happened was the companies were not making enough money to reinvest into the organizational structure, into hiring better talent, production management, overall job oversight, and salespeople were basically left to do everything else, all of those things. So there is, in the last 2 years, is where we've seen the largest shift in the comp structures, where roofers are taking their employees either W-2 or just giving them a gross, like a percentage, and that's it of the overall sale, instead of they're paying based off the gross revenue, not based off the profit. The second thing, that the issue that has caused, is if you don't know your profit margins, not being able to really make sure that you're meeting at least 40% if you're paying off that gross revenue and the person's discounted. So there's a few things that I can see right away just from hearing that. The sales compensation structure is going to change. And what happens is some people are going to leave the industry, or some people are going to build more stability within the industry and grow more rapidly, because now they have more team members around them, and the client will have a better experience.
100%. And so the ones that are doing that already in solar, I feel like, so in about 2 years, I would say maybe another year, Quativa is going to be an amazing resource for roofers, right? I would say in about a year. They still need to get their install relationships dialed in, and that reporting that goes through their app back to the sales rep and the sales company, or the roofing company in your case, that needs to get more fluid. Those are their two pain points right now that are having a lot of issues: the communication from installer to Quativa, and then to the sales work or the roofing company is a big issue right now. And then those relationships, because the installers are walking on them, they're going bankrupt, you know what I mean, because they're not getting a big enough piece of the pie. On the sales side, I would say Coda Ivers is going to be a great resource. Mo Abdallah on the install side, Mo Abdallah out of DFW. He's probably one of the only Tesla certified installers. He can actually install the Tesla roofs right now. And so he'd be a great resource. And then, man, there's a bunch of other people in there. Neil Kaiser. Devin Oaks. When it comes to virtual sales, he's the GOAT in my mind. And then, on the advertising side, you got Josiah Atkins with Prospect Bacon. Is probably one of the better pay-per-click, or paid ads.
We got them on the marketing side.
Nice. Oh yeah. Okay. Yeah, of course. So those are just some of the names I would throw out there. I know in Texas, I can tell you every installer in Texas and every sales org and all that, but nationwide it gets a little tougher because I'm not in those markets. So
yeah. And I think obviously I'm going to have to do some more research to be able to bring them qualified solutions. But there is a need for the overall education of solar in the industry. I mean, for just talking to someone who's in the solar industry, I would say one thing that keeps people in the roofing or other home service industries from really getting into it is, I feel like people who know solar, like whenever you explain it, it's just never in a way that I could understand like how solar really functions. So that's why I've been like doing my research and like trying to make it more understandable for all of us people who are not familiar with solar to understand. So like just to have level 1 knowledge. Like if I feel like if I'm in elementary school of solar, I'd be happy by then.
Yeah, and that's honestly, that's to a degree, that's where your setters and your roofers need to be, right? Because they're the lead gen. If you look at solar coming from the roofing industry, if the roofing industry looks at solar as, hey, I'm the lead gen for solar, then they're going to be wildly successful in solar. And then they're going to have a model now to be able to scale into selling it themselves completely and then servicing the customer completely. You know, the ones that do it really well are obviously Linear Roofing and Linear Solar now, Blue Hammer Roofing, Blue Hammer Solar now. Those guys have transitioned very well. And then it's exactly what you said. They have separate teams for each product. You know what I'm saying? And so start with being the lead gen for solar, and then graduate into being the sales team and have separate teams, like you said. And then who knows, production long term. But man, I would just I talk to these installers all the time, and they are not happy individuals.
Hey, you know what it is? Business is business, and it's always there's always a weak point in any business model. It sounds like the installer side is the weak point in solar, where in roofing the sales side is more of the weak point, because production and operations management, once you have good sales, you can scale that a lot easier. But really scaling sales in roofing is more difficult, where solar guys are just, these solar bros are out here selling. The roofer bros the roofer bros are like praying for hail for the most part. So I really like to hear the different perspectives. So I know it's your podcast, but thank you for answering my question.
Yeah, of course. And it and I'm sure this is probably your favorite too. The Q&A is the best part. You get the raw, real answers. You know what I mean? I can put together some amazing presentations, but when people start asking me questions is when I kind of come alive, because now we're deep in it,
You're like, it's my time.
Yeah. But okay, last question. I ask this on every one of my podcasts.
Yeah.
I'm obsessed with legacy, researching it, learning about it, what it means to different cultures, as well as what it means to the guests on my show. So what does legacy mean to you, and what legacy do you want to leave behind?
Yeah. So legacy for me is the cumulative efforts of the impact that you have left onto others, whether it's as you're alive or after you've passed away, and you've left a monumental impact on people, whether that's one person or a million people. For me personally, my personal goal is to impact and inspire at least 1 million individuals, which is why I've started to try to get out of my comfort zone and start trying to make more video content and get myself out there more, because I believe that we all have a story worth sharing. And I believe that my story and all the things that I've gone through in life are going to inspire a lot of people, because I am the face of overcoming adversity. So if I can do it, anyone else can do it.
Hell yeah, I couldn't agree more. I love the goal of impacting 1 million people. One of my friends, Chris Zizzo, had a similar goal, and now he has 2 million followers on social media. That's awesome. He's like, crap, I wasn't going high enough. Now it's 100 million for him. So I think you might run into the same issue. You might, 2 years from now, you're like, oh, I already hit it. Okay, next. But
well, one of my business partners, she's like, she gave me a quick way to do it. She goes, you just need one video. It needs to get 1 million views. You're done. Life goal done. You can go retire now.
That's fair. That's fair. That's very true. So to get you some more followers, to help you with that impact, anybody that's listening to the show, if they want to reach out, they want to follow you, consume your content, where do they go for that?
Yeah, you can check me out on Instagram. It's Liz for Biz. You can check me out on my Facebook for my business, and my Instagram for my business, Business 411 Official. You can look at what my agency does. We are very passionate. My team is literally the best team on the planet. So if you guys want to see how my team operates, check out our social media and what we're doing.
Fantastic. And we'll include all those links in the podcast notes. Until next time, guys, let's get building.
Bye. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for tuning into this episode of Building Great Sales Teams. We appreciate it. Be sure to execute on everything that you just heard, and let's get building. Before we sign off, we'd like to invite you to join our Brickyard community. Head on over to jointhebrickyard.com. Again, that's jointhebrickyard.com, or click the link in the description to find out more.